Welcome to Love and Murder, your weekly true crime podcast telling you of relationships that turn to murder. I'm back for your midweek mini. I normally do midweek mini with AI Jane. However, this story needed human inflection. In today's episode, I'll tell you about the story of Kathleen Folbigg, who was imprisoned for killing her 4 children. But newfound evidence and the ongoing petition by 90 scientists seeking a pardon for her conviction based on genetic causes led to her release. So let's get right on into it, because it is a mini. An Australian mother, Kathleen Folbigg, has recently been granted an unconditional pardon and is set to be released from jail. This decision comes after new scientific evidence emerged, suggesting that her 4 children died from natural causes rather than as a result of her actions. The tragic deaths of Caleb, Patrick, Sarah, and Laura occurred separately between 1989 and 1999, each child passing away before their 2nd birthday. Kathleen was initially found guilty in 2003 of smothering her children and was sentenced to 40 years in prison for murder and manslaughter with a non-parole period of 30 years. So let's roll it back a bit, shall we, and tell you about Kathleen's past leading up to this moment. Kathleen's life has been marked by tragedy from an early age. Born Kathleen Donovan in 1967, her mother was fatally stabbed by her father before her 2nd birthday, leaving her in the care of the state. Raised by adoptive parents in Newcastle, in the New South Wales Hunter region, Kathleen formed lifelong friendships with Tracy Chapman, Billy Joe Bradshaw, and Megan Dongan. I think that's how you say her last name, who have stood by her side throughout her journey. In 1985, when she was 18, Kathleen met Craig Folbigg, and the couple married 2 years later when she was 20. They embarked on a journey of parenthood, but their happiness was short-lived. Their first child, Caleb, tragically passed away at just 19 days old, found dead in his crib. 2 years later, their 2nd son, Patrick, died at 8 months. In 1993, their daughter Sarah died at 10 months, followed by their 2nd daughter Laura at 18 months in 1999. These devastating losses would ultimately become the central focus for Kathleen's life. After the death of her children, Craig turned over Kathleen's private diaries to the police in May of 1999. The contents of these diaries formed the basis of the prosecution's case against her. In April of 2001, Kathleen was charged with 4 counts of murder, accused of smothering her children to death. She pleaded not guilty, maintaining that their deaths were due to natural causes. Dude, I couldn't even imagine. Of course, like I said, she was arrested and everything. Then, the highly publicized trial took place in Sydney's Supreme Court in August 2003, with the jury being presented with entries from these same diaries. The prosecution argued that these entries were admissions of guilt. Throughout her diaries, Kathleen expressed feelings of guilt, fear, and references to her father. After a 7-week trial, she was found guilty of the murders of Patrick, Sarah, and Laura, as well as the manslaughter of Caleb. This verdict made Kathleen known worldwide as Australia's worst female serial killer. Like I said, she got 40 years in jail and a non-parole period of 30 years, which was later reduced on appeal to 30 years with a non-parole period of 25 years. Despite her conviction, Kathleen maintained her innocence. Her now ex-husband, Craig, who had initially stood by her, turned against her, expressing his relief at the jury's verdict. Her adopted sister, Leah Brown, also believed in her guilt. My question is, if he had initially stood by her, why did he give the journal to the police? Because that doesn't sound like standing by her. That sounds like here's proof that she's guilty. While her family abandoned her, Kathleen's longtime friends, led by Tracy, launched a campaign called Justice for Kathleen Folbigg to fight for her exoneration. This campaign gained momentum when a petition to review her convictions based on forensic pathology findings was presented to NSW Governor David Hurley in 2015. The petition led to an inquiry into her case 3 years later, where new scientific evidence was introduced. The key piece of evidence presented during the inquiry was the discovery of a gene variant shared by Kathleen and her 2 daughters, which could potentially cause cardiac arrhythmia and sudden death. This variant was not found in Caleb or Patrick. However, in July 2019, the judge concluded that the new evidence, quote, as a whole, only reinforced Kathleen's guilt, leaving her hopes for exoneration shattered. How did that reinforce her guilt? I don't understand that. Despite this setback, Kathleen's supporters continues to advocate for her justice on her behalf. Finally, a review into her conviction conducted by former Chief Justice Thomas Bathurst found reasonable doubt as to her guilt on all 4 deaths. This revelation led to the granting of an unconditional pardon and Kathleen's impending release from the Clarence Correctional Center, where she has been serving her sentence. The New South Wales Attorney General, Michael Daly, confirmed this decision and expressed his hope that Kathleen would be able to move on with her life after enduring a 20-year-long ordeal. Craig was also informed about the decision and the release process. It's interesting to note that during the review, Craig refused to provide DNA samples in order to help in the research into genetic issues, which may have led to the baby's death, which may have, if he had done that, that could have helped her get out before 20 years. Although Kathleen has been granted an unconditional pardon, it's important to note that her convictions have not been removed. The authority to do so lies with the Court of Criminal Appeal and the only body authorized to overturn convictions. The petition submitted by 19 scientists in 2021 played a crucial role in shedding light on the potential miscarriage of justice in this case. These experts argue that there is no medical evidence supporting the prosecution's case that Kathleen smothered her children. Instead, they propose that genetic causes may have played a role in their deaths. Geneticists discovered back in 2018, that Sarah and Laura had the genetic mutation in the CALM2 gene, CALM2 gene, which can cause sudden death in infants and children. And like I said, they didn't find this gene in Caleb and Patrick, so they're actually working to determine if the deaths of Caleb and Patrick has also strong genetic links. An autopsy conducted at the time of Patrick's death revealed that he suffered from epilepsy, with his death attributed to airway obstruction caused by a seizure and an infection. Caleb's death at just 19 days old was attributed to sudden infant death syndrome. And I'm going to tell you, that really scared me when I had my child. Ooh, that really scared me, sudden infant death syndrome. The scientists argued that Kathleen's conviction relied in part on the discredited theory known as Meadows' Law, which assumes, get this, Meadows' Law assumes that the likelihood of multiple children from the same family dying of genetic causes is so improbable that foul play must be involved. Wow. However, Joseph Gex, I don't know if that's how you say his last name, G-E-C-G, Gex, a pediatric geneticist who works with children suffering from rare and fatal disabilities and was one of the signatories to the petition, explains that this theory is no longer supported by scientific evidence. The release of Catherine after 20 years of imprisonment marks a significant turn in a cause that has captivated public attention in Australia. The tragedy of losing 4 children is unimaginable, and for years, the assumption of her guilt has weighed heavily on Kathleen. Can you imagine, seriously, can you imagine that? The emergence of new scientific evidence and the doubts cast upon the previous convictions bring into question the fairness of the trial and the accuracy of the verdict. The ongoing inquiry into Kathleen's guilt will further examine the case and determine if her convictions should be overturned. The hope is that this thorough examination will ensure justice is served and that any potential miscarriage of justice is rectified. The process may lead to the State Court of Appeals completely overturning Kathleen's convictions altogether, which will offer her a chance to rebuild her life outside of prison. Quote, To my knowledge, this is the first case in which a court anywhere in the world has used whole genome sequences to find evidence of a cause of death. The reality is, Kath lost 4 children and she hasn't been allowed to grieve as a mother should, which is what I'm saying. This case raises broader questions about the limits of science in criminal investigations and the importance of relying on sound evidence and expert testimony. It serves as a reminder that justice requires a constant reevaluation of the evidence and a commitment to seeking the truth. As Kathleen prepares to leave prison and face a new chapter in her life, the impact of these revelations will undoubtedly continue to reverberate throughout the legal and scientific communities in Australia and beyond. And that, lambs, is the bewildering case of Kathleen Folbigg, a woman who has faced much tragedy and no time to even grieve. I don't fault her husband, as I can understand his stance, but at the same time, I feel insanely bad for Kathleen. However, when it came out that the deaths were due to genetics, did Craig change his mind about her? Did he go and apologize to her? Or is he still dead set on believing she murdered their children? That's what I wondered. Also, those friends, right? Ride or die. Those are the kinds of friends everyone needs. Huge shout out to Tracy Chapman, Billy Joe Bradshaw, and Megan Dongan. Sorry if I said your last name wrong. But especially Tracy. So what do you think about this case? I'd love to hear your thoughts, and you have 3 ways of sharing them with me, as I always tell you. Number 1, you can tell me in the comments below. Number 2, you can join the Lamb Facebook group. It's free and a welcoming group where you can discuss the cases with the rest of the lambs. Number 3, you can join the exclusive Lamb community here at patreon.com/loveandmurder. And before you go, don't forget to give me a 5-star review on whatever platform you're on. That would help me out greatly, and it takes no time at all. Also, don't forget to share this case with your family, with your husband, with your mother. Share with your friends. Share with everybody you know. And as always, even though this is a mini, I'm still ending the episode, as we always do, by reminding you that it's all love and no murder, y'all. Bye.